Hi, thanks for coming on. Andy speaking. Coming up 6:45 on Friday, the 7th of October. Looking ahead to games in England, Scotland and the National League. There's a maximum bet in the National League, which we'll come to. And just to say, be back next time. Right, just one quick point. When I say on here, when you get a team that's rated to win, there's a bit of value in it. It doesn't mean that it's they're going to win. And like, you know, so like somebody said to me last week, they backed a team that was rated high. We didn't back them because there was no value in them, and they went ahead and backed them, lost. Look, that's if you want to back teams like that, you know, that's all I do. I don't look for winners, as I've said many times. You might think that's crazy. I don't look for winners. I look for teams which have got value in. And enough value in relation to my rating. I wouldn't say what that is, but you know, that's how I bet. The winners find themselves. If you go looking for winners over value, you'll find yourself back in teams that aren't value, and that is not how you win. You cannot win in the long run by betting teams at a shorter price than what they should be. The only time I'll ever do that is if I'm going to watch a game and have a fun bet. It's like, tomorrow I'm going to have it costs me 15 quid or whatever to get in. I will have a bet on that to cover my entry fee, as a small bet, an interest bet. It's not a sort of bet that I'm going to go and have a proper bet on, because there's no value in the price, and that is the only way you can make money at betting, be it football, racing, darts, snooker, tennis, whatever you want to call, whatever you bet on. You have to be getting a bigger price than the percentage chance said animal, person, team, whatever has of winning, and that is the only way you can do it. You cannot win by, and I'll tell you a story. Someone at the weekend said to me they bet £25 a point in Scotland and England, made over 100 quid. And then he had £100 on PSG the other night to beat Benfica. I think it was. The game ended up being a draw. Now, that's crazy. And I said to him, "Why did you think? Why do that?" And I said, "Oh well, they've got Neymar, Messi, Mbappe." He said, that means absolutely nothing to me. I tell you that now. That counts for nothing. That a team has got players like that. If you're gonna start backing teams because they've got just world-class players or sexy names, etc., you're never, ever, ever going to win. And I can tell you now that Champions League, absolutely zero interest for me. Half the group games, teams don't bother trying unless, you know, until, I don't know, depending on what their league fixtures are. Somebody say, like, take Real Madrid. They know 9 points gets them through the group. They've got 3 tough games coming up at the weekend in the Spanish League. They won't go full out in those Champions League games because they know they've got another 3 fixtures when they've got easier league fixtures, and so on and so on. You need to look at things like this if you're going to bet in games like that. I never touch them, and to say that you bet a team because they've got Messi, you know, is just absolutely ridiculous. I price those games up. I price those games up for somebody else, but I have no interest. And I could tell you straight away that when somebody said to me they backed PSG, I went back and looked at my figures. I wouldn't have touched them. I had them rated to win, but I had them at such and such a price, and the price they were was like 5 times shorter or something. And if you're going to do that, you can't win. And it's real sad to bet what I'm doing at £25 a point. You made yourself 100 quid in Scotland and England last weekend, and then you go and give it back on one game because you thought PSG would win and they've got great players. It doesn't work like that. You can't win. Honestly, I promise you. The only way you can win at this is by backing something at a bigger price than what it should be, and that's the only way you can win. I mean, I work with a turf accountant who's been a turf accountant for 40 years, and that's the only way punters can win, is by doing that. If something you think's got a 50% chance and you're getting 5 to 4 about it, in the long run you'll have to be in front. And for me, that's for a lot of professional punters, that's the dream scenario. 50% winners at 5-4. You're going to make 12.5% on your money over the course of time. That's fantastic. I would take that all day long. But it doesn't work out like that because, but that's just an example. But if you're going to back these teams, guys, I'm just saying that you really, really, and to have 4 times as much stake on that as well, it's madness. Right, let's get on with some proper football. Scottish Premiership, St Johnstone Celtic 10-23-67. 7 points in St Johnstone. One of these came off the other week, didn't it? Was it St Mirren? Something like that. We're about 16-1 when they should have been 8 or something. But look, this is a once a season thing. And I know it flies in the face of what I've just said, but this figure is far too low for me to advise you to bet and for you to be betting, because you're a 10% strike rate. What's your losing running going to be on that? And it's not going to be 90. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't work that way. But these bets, over the course of time, you'll finish in front. But you could have losing runs of over 300 or something, and I honestly, that is the truth. But in the long run, you'll make money. But you can't sustainably do it, because you'll go round a twist mentally. I've tried doing things like this in the past, and it just doesn't work. Hibernian Motherwell 55-23-22. Nothing in Hibs. This is too short. Hibs have been decent at home. For all the flack I've given them, they've been decent at home. I think they'll probably win. But Motherwell is such a funny side. But Hibs have improved of late, and I was going through their figures the other day, and I've got an up arrow against them at the moment. Livingston Ross 65-23-12. They should be 8-15. Livy, they're 10-11. They've won 3 from 4, beat Kilmarnock, Hearts and Hibs. They lost 2-1 to Rangers first day of the season, but they made Rangers sweat it out. They were 1 up until the 72nd minute. That is decent form as far as I'm concerned. Ross are in a state, 1 win all season, a 1-0 win over Killy. The road form has been 3 losses and a 0-0 draw at St Johnstone. They've scored 1 goal on the road. That was at Hearts back in July in a 2-1 loss. They've scored, I think, 1 goal since middle of August, and that was at home to Aberdeen. They're impotent, and now they're leaking goals like a sieve. A 5-0 thrashing at home to Motherwell in the week. As I say, they've scored once since beginning of August or something. It's worrying times. Dundee United, Aberdeen 26-24-50. I was tempted with the Dons. They've only won once on the road at St Johnstone. They drew at Ross. Lost at Hibs, lost at Celtic. I think that's okay-ish form. The Ross sort of 10% enthusiasm, but Dundee United are in trouble. They're an awful team, not won all season. And they've got Stevie Crawford as assistant manager, who came from mid-table 2nd Division club East Fife. Still wondering about that one. There's 0.15 in Aberdeen. I was tempted with it. Jim Goodwin is suspended for 8 games, as you know, for calling a player a cheat. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. A fine, I think, would have been a much better way to handle it, but it's a Scottish FA. But as I say, if I had to have a bet, I would be on Aberdeen. Rangers St Mirren 71-22-7. St Mirren are going well. They are, but again, 93% chance that's not going to win, so stay away from it. Rangers will win. There's nothing in it. Just don't bother. 2-9 about is no good. Kilmarnock Hearts 29-23-48. I can't split these. Well, I can't not split them. That's wrong. That's a lie. Because Hearts 48%. There's nothing in the price. Killy haven't been overly bad at home. 1-2, drawn 1, lost 1. Hearts haven't been great on the road. Difficult. A game to leave alone. If forced, I'd bet Hearts, but it wouldn't surprise me if Killy did actually win this. Championship then, Inverness Partick. That's tonight. I shall watch this. Inverness been going really well. They've won the last 3 on the road. They've beaten Wraith, Dundee and Ayr on the road. That's really good. They've only won once at home though. But they've only played 3 at home. Drew with Queen's Park, beat Cove 4-1, lost 1-0 to Morton. But But I tell you, if you remember, even back in the day in the paper I used to write, and I used to say about Morton, are capable of ruining anything. They're that sort of side. The old rule used to be, you don't bet the ton, you don't bet against the ton. Them and Queen of the South were teams that I used to completely exclude from my bets, and if it didn't matter who they were playing. Morton could be away to Dundee. Dundee could be 10 points clear at the top. You just don't get involved with the ton, because they can, as I say, they can capable of spoiling anyone's day. Partick, to be fair, this season Partick are scoring at a fair rate. They 5 last week against Morton. There you go. Morton rock up and beat Inverness, lose 5-1 at Partick. That's exactly what I've been about Morton. They found the net twice in every game on the road this season. 3 times against Dundee. There's sure to be goals in this tonight. I would have thought. I'd hope anyway. I'd have to back Partick. I might have a tenner on Partick or just something stupid. But it's a no-bet game for me. This is far too short. 0.03. It's not worth getting involved. But as I say, I might have a tenner on Partick or something like that. Arbroath Dundee 32-24-44. Not been impressed with Dundee of late. Not been impressed with Arbroath either. One game at home, they've managed to find the net. They've drawn 1, lost 2. They did win at Morton the other week, and there you go, Morton. You see, they've just what I mean. They get thumped 5-1 by Partick, win away at Inverness, lose at home to Arbroath. You try and work out Morton. It will send you around a twist, promise you. Dundee, as I say, I've not been impressed. You look at the last 5 games, it's lose, win, lose, win, lose. They should be beating Arbroath. Let's be clear on that. They're way better than Arbroath. But losing 3-1 at Cove last week is bad. I know Cove are starting to find their feet a bit, but come on. I mean, you're talking about a team here that was in the Premiership last season to a team that was in League 2 or 3 seasons ago. It's, this shouldn't even really be a contest on squads. Quite worried about Dundee at the moment, I have to say. They had that defeat first game against Partick. Then they won the next 2, thumped Arbroath 4-2. You're thinking, yeah, here we go. And as I say, they've lost 3 of the last 5, and that is a concern. Ayr Queen's Park. They were going well, Ayr. They've lost the last 2, and they've only won once at home. They've only lost once at home as well. They've had a couple of draws. I thought evens. That's not 6-5. That's evens. I might have got that the wrong way round, guys. They could be 6-5. In which case, I'm not interested in them anyway. But I make Ayr evens for this game. I can't believe that they're 6-5. Queen's Park won 2 from 3 on the road. They got a 3-0 beating at Dundee. I mean, I sort of stuck the knife into Owen Coyle a bit at the start of the season, but to be fair to them, they're playing well. They've scored against everybody so far this season, bar Dundee, and they're going well, Queen's Park. But it's a no-bet game, isn't it? It really is. Morton Hamilton, another game that could give you serious mental issues if you spent too long on this. 40-24-36. I mean, Morton, look at the teams they've beaten. They've beaten Queen's Park near the top, Inverness near the top. They've beaten Cove. They've lost to Arbroath, Wraith, Ayr and Partick. They've drawn with Dundee and Hamilton first up. So it's 3 wins, 2 draws, 4 losses, and that is what you get season after season with Morton. It really is. They could turn up tomorrow, win this 3-0. Wouldn't surprise me. They could lose it 3-0. They really are one of those teams that that you're scared of. Hamilton drawn every game on the road. Their home form's been atrocious, Hamilton's, but they've drawn every game on the road, including at Partick and an Ayr. If the same Partick turned up that drew at Partick, if the same Hamilton, turned up that drew at Partick and Ayr, they'll win this tomorrow. But they're just too untrustworthy, and it's a game which I've got no interest in. Same as the bottom one, Wraith Cove, 45-24, 31. Wraith played 4 at home, 1-2, lost to Dundee and Inverness, beaten Ayr and Morton. They ought to be beating Cove, and they do owe Cove one. Cove beat them early in the season, but Cove's recent form, the last 4 games, they've won 2, drawn 2, and they found the net at least twice in every game, and one of those games they drew 2-2 at Partick and beat Dundee 3-1. There's been improvements from Cove. If I had to bet a team in this game, it would be them purely on, but that's too small at 31%, 0.2. So there's not a lot about in the Championship, sadly. Right, let's go on to League One. Some good news in League One, and that good news is for the last 4 weeks, I'm not going to say too much on here, but I had somebody come on who got in touch with me, not through Twitter, through somebody else I know in Scottish football, connected with a certain club. I'm not going to say which club on here, and he has given me the same. He's given me the team sheets on a Thursday and a Friday, or whenever they've played, a day or two before. So he really does know what's going on. I get that all the time. I get people come on and say, "Oh, I know this, I know him," and I just say to them, "Send the stuff over for a couple of months, and we'll talk again." And it quite often fizzles out to nothing. But I think when someone's telling you what team is going to play 2 days before they actually do play, and they've been accurate 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever, 5 games, it is. That's something I like to see, and it does it sort of tells me that somebody knows a bit what's going on, and can give us a real handle on that squad, and how that team's expected to perform. And I'm sure we'll be able to use that to our benefit over the coming months. Right, anyway, enough of that. Airdrie, Queen of the South, 51-23-26. A shade of odds on I make Airdrie, that's all. Confidence seems to have gone through the floor since that 6-0 hammering at home to Edinburgh. They bounced back the following week and put 5 past Clyde, but they lost at Kelty last week and got a 4-2 hammering off Montrose on Tuesday. The defeat at Kelty is a concern, I have to say. They've won 3 from 4 at home, but I just do have a concern. And as I did flag up at the beginning of the season, there's 3 teams in this division with unproven managers, and managers I thought, could be improved upon, shall we say. Queen of the South, as I've just spoken about. Morton, let's look at their form. 1-2, drawn 3, lost 3. You don't know what you're going to get week to week. They thrashed Edinburgh a couple of weeks ago 4-1, then drew 1-1 at home to Alloa. Now that's decent form. The 2 games before that, a 3-1 loss at Queen of the South, a 2-0 home loss to Dunfermline, isn't the end of the world. There could be a... it's hard to say, isn't it? But there could be a chance the wheels might just be coming back on at Queen of the South, but we shall see. But there's no bet in this game as far as I'm concerned. Alloa Dunfermline. Alloa tempt me at the price. 0.4 in it, 37%. Is it enough? It's heading towards that way. They've won 3 from 4 at home, but the time I went heavy on them against Edinburgh back in August, they lost 4-2. They crumbled, and that's a concern. Their only other defeats, to be fair, have been away at Dunfermline and away at Airdrie. They can right that wrong possibly this weekend against Dunfermline, who to me are... I don't know what to make. They started the season off flying. They won 3 in a row, but teams that over 30 odd years I've noticed this, that teams that they build up this head of steam, and then all of a sudden they sort of look round to see who's behind them, and a bit of panic sets in, and oh crikey. And those 3 decent wins were followed by a 0-0 at Kelty, 1-1 at Airdrie. That's fair enough. A 2-0 win at Queen of the South, and they've drawn the last 2 to Falkirk and Peterhead last week. I can tell you now, bookies made an absolute fortune out of that game. We had them 2s on or something, Dunfermline, and they were 4s on, 5s on or something, weren't they? But there you go. That's a classic example of not betting teams that are the wrong price. Dunfermline should have been 2s on. They go off 4s or 5s on. We don't bet them at that price. Had they been 4-6, we would have backed them. Of course we would. But I'd have to back Aller in this game if I was going to have a bet, because there's 0.4 in it. But it wouldn't surprise me if Dunfermline turned up and put 3 past them. But from betting purposes, I could only ever be with Alloa. Clyde, Montrose, 26, 24, 50. Clyde have lost the last 5, shipped 15 goals, and scored 3. It's not very good. I think there's problems at Broadwood, and they're heading in completely the wrong direction. I never thought Clyde would sort of, be a top half of the table side. I did think they'd struggle in this division alongside Peterhead and Edinburgh. Edinburgh are top, by the way, so I've got that completely wrong at the moment. Montrose won at Peterhead 2-0, lost 2-1 at Alloa, lost to Dunfermline, probably the 2 best teams in the division, I think, and drew 0-0 at Falkirk. There's 0.25 in Montrose at 50%. Again, it's like with everything, it's how you see it. Do you see that as value? Edinburgh Kelty, 44, 23, 33. I mean, Edinburgh seem to win well or get stuffed. Stuffings have been 3-0, 3-0, 4-1. And the victories have been like 6-0, 4-2, stuff like that. So you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, that Kelty aren't performing well, but they've won 2 of the last 3, but the road trips they've lost all 4 and only scored 2 goals. You'd have to back Edinburgh if you're going to have a bet in this game. 0.13 at 44%. Whether you see that value or not, that's what it's all about. Peterhead Falkirk, 27, 23, 50. Very, very... that's something I struggled to get my head around this week. Falkirk 4-6. Now, let's look at Falkirk's. Falkirk have won once on the road. They've lost 2-0 at Kelty, drawn at Dunfermline, lost at Airdrie, and they won at Edinburgh. So, does that form make them 4-6? I don't think it does. I think that's ridiculous price. I mean, yes, Peterhead are bottom of the league. They've won once all season, and they've lost 3 games at home. But I just don't think you make a team 4-6. And when it's like when I say to you sometimes another team is pushing up the other team's rating, that is the case here. It's Peterhead's poor form at home that is raising Falkirk, raising this figure. It is not that Falkirk aren't that figure on their own. It is because Peterhead have dropped, their figures dropped. It's projected Falkirk's up. Look, I think Falkirk will probably win, but I wouldn't be taking 4-6. 0.75 at 27%. I couldn't back it for a team that's won 1 and lost 3. But the defeats at home have been against Montrose, Airdrie and Queen of the South. Potentially all of those 3 sides are better than Falkirk. Kelty beat Falkirk, Peterhead beat Kelty. If you want to look at it that way, Peterhead are value, aren't they? But look, it's a game to leave alone. But please don't go taking that. I don't care if they win 5-0. If you take 4-6 about an even money shot, you're not going to last at this game, as I try to keep saying. Albion Bonnie Rig in League 2, 37, 23, 40. Bonnie Rig underpriced every single week. Ridiculous. I don't understand it. Albion have won only 1 game all season. That was on the road at Bonnie Rig, incidentally. They've lost 3 at home, drawn 1. The draw was to Annan. You wouldn't have much confidence in Albion. But at the same token, you wouldn't have much confidence in Bonnie Rig. They've won once on the road at East Fife, turned over at Elgin, Dumbarton, drawn at Stranraer. It's a game to sit out. It really is. I'd have to bet Albion if I was going to have a bet, and that is pretty decent. But you just can't ever make a real proper case to back Albion Rovers in any game of football, and it's the same this week. Forfar East Fife 42, 24, 34. Was that an improvement last week from Forfar, or was it that Dumbarton aren't playing so well? I prefer to side with the latter, because Forfar is surrounded with negativity. 5 home games this season, 1 win, 2 losses, 2 draws. You think that warrants an 11 to 10 shot? I don't. Absolutely not a chance. I mean, East 5 situation isn't great manager-wise, but they have at least won 2 on the road and drawn the other 2. They are unbeaten away from Bayview. It's always been the opposite way with East 5. They were always a tough nut to crack at Bayview. It's the complete opposite this season. They've won at Elgin and Albion. They've drawn at Annan and they've drawn at Stranraer. They found the net an average of 2 goals per game. And if they score twice tomorrow, they'll win this, because at Forfar I don't think have got 2 goals in them. Well, the squad has, but the team set up and the manager hasn't. The manager's not good enough, as I say every week. He needs to go for the sake of the club. Stenhousemuir Annan 55-23-22. Steny have been really good to us this season, haven't they? They've only won 2 from 4 at home, but one of the defeats was against Dumbarton, so we'll cut them a bit of slack there. The other was a 3-3 draw against Elgin, which really does surprise me. But they've won 4 from the last 5 overall. I don't see any reason why they can't get the job done against Annan. Annan turned them over first game. They'll be gunning for Annan. Annan's road form is lost 1-0, 4-0, 5-1, drew 2-2 with Albion. Albion Rovers is the only team they've picked a point up from on the road. Steny ought to win this game. I say ought to because you can't say a team's going to win, can you? Stirling Dumbarton 40-22-37. Stirling are going well. They've won 2 from 4 at home. They've beaten Steny and Stranraer 3-0 and 4-1. Drawn 2-2 with Elgin, 1-1 with Albion. That sort of is slightly off-putting. But they've won their last 3 games, and they've won at Forfar, East 5. They've won on the road at Annan. Their only defeats have been to Dumbarton and Bonnyrigg. I think that's rock solid form. I really do. Dumbarton, again, another team, like, remember what I say about when a team starts off flying and then they get a bit nervous and look in the rear view mirror. They won 5 on the trot quite comfortably, I felt, and then it was 2 1-0 wins, and then it's been a 3-2 defeat, a 0-0 draw at Forfar, both on the road. They're on the road to Stirling, who are better than Stranraer and Forfar, no doubt about that. I wouldn't want to back Dumbarton. I think they're too short at 6-4. The value is certainly with Stirling. It's a question of whether you see that. Stranraer Elgin 50-24-26. Stranraer rock solid at home this season. Played 5, won 3, drawn 2. And the 2 draws against Bonnyrigg and East 5, both of those teams needed a 90th minute equaliser. Otherwise Stranraer could have won all 5. They're a different team at home. On the road they've lost 3, drawn 1. They're tough nut to crack at home. Elgin are just shipping goals and scoring goals. 5-1 against Annan, 3-all against Steny. They've had another 3 2-2 draws. I think we guarantee goals in this tomorrow, I really do. Elgin have yet to win on the road. They've drawn 3, lost 1. Personally, I think Stranraer are the value, and there's a little bit in the price. It's entirely up to you. And that completes it for Scotland. Let's go on to England. Right, this isn't a bet, okay? I've put this up here because this is the most value bet there is in the Premiership this weekend. And look at that. And look at that rating. And that is just why I don't get involved. I wouldn't get involved in this game. I would take 0.10 if this was 60% or something, but not 40. 0.1 at 40 when you get 0.23 at 58, 0.13 even at 44 there. So rubbish bet, isn't it? But I've been really, really impressed with them, Arsenal. I have to say, I watched them. And I didn't go and see them. I watched them on the telly because I didn't go to a game last week. Watched loads of football. Didn't enjoy any of it because it was all Premiership rubbish. But the Arsenal 4 from 4 at home, and they've scored minimum of 2 goals every game. And I watched that game last week against Tottenham, and Arsenal were very, very good. They put it on Tottenham right from the off. Thoroughly deserved it. And I watched them again last night, and I think that if they play like that Sunday, they'll beat Liverpool. I do, and that's why for anybody who's bet Arsenal, just any time. We backed Manchester United to beat them the other week, if you remember, but I did say that he made a mistake, and he did, but they're a fantastic side, Arsenal, and that performance last week against Tottenham, who themselves hadn't lost a game since April or March or something like that, I felt was a really good performance. And I'll just say something quickly about Tottenham. Slightly worrying, because obviously we backed them for the Premiership. They're not going to win the Premiership, but I'll get emails now from lots of Spurs fans who are very vocal. But just to say, I had a look at that. I had a look at the game, watched the game against Arsenal. I had a look at some data. Worrying trend for Tottenham, and I predicted it to myself before I watched them the other night against Eintracht Frankfurt, and exactly the same thing happened. They went one down against Arsenal. When a team goes one down, you expect a response. Tottenham never started moving until the 30th minute. Arsenal scored in the 20th minute, but Tottenham, it took them 10 minutes before they started making moves. And then 1 minute later, they got a penalty. I'm not going to say that's going to happen every game, but they were against Eintracht Frankfurt the other night. And I've been checking the data on Tottenham. I looked and I thought, yeah, let's see if it happens again. I looked at the data the next day. I think it was Wednesday morning. It was Wednesday, it wasn't yesterday. Wednesday morning. And exactly the same. It mirrored the game against Arsenal. Nothing. There was no real forward emphasis until the half-hour mark. Now that's a really worrying concern. Because when you've got three of the best attackers in the league, and they have, and you're playing an ultra-defensive game, I get Conte, what he does. Managers like him, they put in a block and set out not to lose, and hopefully the attackers are going to nick one. That's what they do, but that is not going to work when you're playing teams like this, and they're coming at you out the blocks. I thought it was a really, really worrying sort of, I'm not going to say it's a trend, but you have to say when you've got that amount of attacking talent, you should not be setting up and playing the game like that. Far be it from me to tell Antonio Conte anything, but on my figures and on that data, to start not playing the game or making forward moves until the half hour is worrying. It is worrying, and as I say, Arsenal deserved it, and they look a really, really good side, and I think they'll beat Liverpool Sunday. They've won every game at home. There's 0.1 in it, and that just shows you how bad it is to find value in the Premiership. Right, let's get on. Championship, Blackburn, Rotherham, 58-23-19. Blackburn, I think, should be 8-11, then 19-20. They have been patchy at home, but they've won 4 from 6 at home. The defeats against Bristol City and Stoke. They've beaten Millwall, Watford, West Brom and QPR here. All of those are potentially decent sides, with the exception of West Brom, who, on my figures, have got a top 8 squad, and they're in 22nd position. That just shows when you look at a team that's got a real good squad and they're way below that, you know that the fault lies with one person. That's the manager. West Brom need to get rid of Steve Bruce, and quick. Rotherham on the road have yet to win. They've had 3 draws at Preston, QPR and Middlesbrough. They lost 3-0 at Sunderland. I can't see anything really other than a Blackburn win at the weekend. Decent figure. There's value in the price. We need to back it. Coventry, Burnley. Coventry have done okay of late. You look at the league table and you see where they are. You think, oh, they're a knockover. But what you've got to remember, they've played 7 games on the road, Coventry. And that, okay, they've played twice at home. They lost at Preston and they beat Middlesbrough, but they don't seem to have a lot of goals in them. And I for some reason I just think that Burnley are a far better team away from home than what they are at home. It's all pretty stuff. Although the record is the same, They've had 6 1-1 draws this season, Burnley, but they're much better than that. I think we were on them the week they beat Wigan 5-1. I think they'll win tomorrow. Figures sort of suggest that, and there's a bit in the price. Right, League One, Barnsley Exeter 52-23-25. I think Barnsley should be odds on. I really do. They are in absolutely fantastic form. They've not lost since August. Just the last 3 games they've won at Fleetwood, Cambridge, 3-1 against Charlton. They won 2-0 at Sheffield Wednesday, 2-2 at Ipswich. That is absolutely rock solid form. They look aside at the moment. They're 5th in the table. They're on an upward curve. They play Exeter. Exeter aren't overly a bad side, but they've got only 1 win on the road. That was at Forest Green, who are bottom or second bottom. They've been turned over at Shrewsbury, Cambridge, drawn at Lincoln and Accrington. I think Barnsley are far, far better. I can only see one result here, and that's a Barnsley win. Bristol Rovers, Cambridge, 36-24-40. Rovers 1-1 at home, drawn 2, lost 3. They've not won since the 13th of August. They've lost 5 of the last 8. The other 3 have been draws. They're in absolutely appalling form. I don't know what else to say, really. Cambridge have only won once on the road, and they've lost 4, drawn 1. It's not a game to bet in. I think it's too unpredictable. If forced, I'd side with Cambridge purely on figures and how awful Bristol Rovers are. But Cambridge have lost 4 of the last 5, so just be mindful of that. Derby Port Vale 55-24-21. I don't think Derby should be 4-6. Yes, they've got a decent home record, but it has been a struggle. It's 2-1 against Wickham, and doesn't inspire you. But victories over Barnsley and Peterborough do say they ought to be beating Port Vale, but I wouldn't want to be taking 4-6. Port Vale aren't great on the road. They've lost 3 out of their 5 games. They did win at Burton, who are bottom. That sort of shows you where they are. That's quite a lot, but I wouldn't want to take on I wouldn't want to take on a 55% shot, unless I was getting sort of 1.5 or something from it. Forest Green Bolton 24-24-52. Not a lot to say about this one, really. Forest Green are awful. They've lost 5 at home. Beat Accrington. We actually backed them against Burton last week, and they were 2-1 up with 8 minutes to go. Forest Green, and we only backed them because they were such a good price. And Bolton were on the outrights. They're away form. We backed them the other night away at Cheltenham. I thought they'd win that. They should be up to beating Forest Green, but I wouldn't want to be taking the sort of prices they are. Lincoln Charlton 33-23-44. 1 win at home. That was against Derby. From Lincoln, they haven't lost. They've drawn the other 3. Charlton, you don't know what you're going to get. No wins on the road, but losses to only Bolton and Barnsley, 2 of the top better clubs. Charlton are up to winning this, but it's whether you trust them to do so. 0.35 at 44 I think is okay. It's just a question of whether you trust them and whether you think that's enough value to take that trust. Morecambe Ipswich 14-23-63. I've little doubt Ipswich will win this game, but they're 4-11. It's too short. There's a 1.5 in Morecambe. This has got the sort of makeup of a Rangers St Mirren game, hasn't it? Really, I wouldn't take it. Ipswich will probably win. Morecambe are pretty hopeless. They've lost every game at home bar 2. I think they've lost the last 3 or 4, so I wouldn't touch it. Oxford Wickham 43-23-34. 18th plays 19th. It's a bit of a derby. Oxford won twice at home. They've lost to Lincoln and MK Dons, which sort of tempers any enthusiasm to get involved in them. Wickham, there's 0.3 at 34%. It's not enough. They've lost 4 on the road. They did win 3-0 at Barnsley, which is odd, I know. You do get results like that sometimes in lower down football. Peterborough Burton, let's get on with that. They've won. There's been an absolute stack of money again for Peterborough this week. I think it was McBookie or Chisholm. Somebody went 4-5 earlier on in the week. They're 2s on now, Peterborough. Absolute mega money. I think there was one weekend we backed them. I think it might have been Morecambe or Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday. I can't remember early on in the season. We backed them, and I did say how much money they'd been put on them, and the same sort of crowd has done the same thing again. They've won 4 from 5 at home. The only team to score here was Fleetwood. Their home wins have been 3-0, 4-0, 3-0, 2-0. I'd expect Peterborough to thump Burton, if I'm being honest, but 8-15 is too short. Plymouth Accrington, 59-22-19. I think Plymouth will win, and they, as I've said before, they do look the real deal. There's no question about that. The victories in recent weeks against Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday, Bolton, Peterborough, Barnsley, they've beaten all of those teams at home. I do think the acid test will come when they play the mid-table teams away, because away from home they've lost at Fleetwood and Charlton, who are sort of mid-table-ish. They did win at Forest Green, Plymouth and Derby, drew at Portsmouth. So, they're not putting a foot wrong at the moment, Plymouth. Look, 7-10, 8-11, it's pretty much the same thing. But I just can't back it purely on price. But I do think they'll win, if you do want my opinion on that. Portsmouth Fleetwood 60-23-17. Portsmouth far too short for this game. Fleetwood have won at Peterborough, Burton, drawn at Morecambe and Lincoln, lost to Port Vale. They've only lost once since the opening day of the season. That was at home to Barnsley. They're a tough nut to crack. They really are. I'd expect Portsmouth to win, though, to be honest. Portsmouth last 2 results, they lost 3-2 at Ipswich, drew 2-2 with Plymouth. Prior to that, they'd won 6 on the spin. The only loss has been away at Ipswich. They're a decent side. I was tempted to go to this tomorrow, but I'm going to haven't. Sheffield Wednesday, Cheltenham. Again, I think Sheffield Wednesday will win, but it's underpriced. They've only won 3 at home. They've lost 1 and drawn 2, but the draws have been to Ipswich and Portsmouth. The defeat was against Barnsley, so the form was rock solid. There's 2 points in Cheltenham. It's you can't do it. They've won once on the road, drawn a couple, but they've lost to Accrington and Barnsley. A draw wouldn't surprise me, but it's too low, isn't it, to get involved. Shrewsbury MK Dons, I was interested in this as a potential members bet, and it was going to be a members bet, but the price has gone. Sadly, they've won 2 from 5 at home. They've lost to Ipswich and Accrington. Shrewsbury, they've beaten Exeter and Burton. I do think they're up to beating MK Dons, because they're a bottom 6 club on my figures. They have won a couple on the road, though, but they've lost 3, MK. I just thought there was... Shrewsbury were 13-8 earlier on in the week. I thought there was enough in that 0.13, 0.12 to have a bet, but not at the price now. I thought it was best to leave it. Barrow Mansfield, real tight game this one. Barrow have lost the last 2, but one of them was on the road at Tranmere. They're not great on the road. The only home defeat was against Orient. Mansfield let a 2-goal lead slip against Hartlepool last week, which isn't good enough. We're on them on the outright. I just have to back Barrow if I was going to bet in this game. There's 0.2 in them, but it's a no-bet game as far as I'm concerned. Bradford Stockport 54-24-21. They've won 3 from 6 at home. Bradford, I think they should be odds on for this. I really do. Right, okay, they've won 3 from 6. Let's just call that 50%. I mean, I don't work it like this, but let's just call that 50%. Stockport are the most overbacked team in this division every single week. Stockport's away form, played 5, lost 5. They've shipped a minimum of 2 goals every away match this season. I think they're 4-1 shots for this. I just don't understand why the money keeps coming from for Stockport. It's almost as bad as me with Weymouth. I know that the wins are due, if you like, but I don't see Stockport winning this tomorrow. Right, Colchester against Harrogate, a real bottom of the table clash. This. They've won once at home, Colchester. They've beaten Bradford, funnily enough. We're just mentioning them. Harrogate are a point above them. They've won once on the road, and that was against Gillingham. And Gillingham, incidentally, are one of those sort of bottom cluster of sides. If I had to bet, I would bet Harrogate, 0.7 in it. I think Colchester are awful. Harrogate are slightly less awful. I'm not saying bet them though. It's how you see it, but 0.7's good. Crewe Gillingham 50-23-27. Crewe up and down side. They've lost twice at home, but that has been to Stevenage and Mansfield, two of the best sides in the division. They've beaten Sutton, Crawley and Harrogate. They've lost at home, as I say, to Stevenage, Mansfield, and they drew with Northampton, another top side. I don't think there's any holes in Crewe's home form, whereas Gillingham, I think there's holes all over the shop, particularly on the road. They've lost 3, drawn 2. They've scored once on the road. That was at Grimsby, and Grimsby, incidentally, are one of the worst home sides in this division. They're mid-table. They've yet to win at home. Doncaster Orient 31-23-46. Tough game to assess this. I thought it was anyway. I pushed Doncaster up to 33. I dropped them down, I think, as low as 26. I pushed Orient up. I dropped them. A real tough game it was to assess. It still is. The home defeat against Newport last week for Orient doesn't inspire. But Doncaster have lost twice at home to Mansfield and Swindon, two of the sort of toppish teams, if you like. I would say Leyton Orient would probably win, but the value does lie with Doncaster. Grimsby Crawley. Now, this, when I say about figures being and prices made on the opposition, this is a classic example. Because if we look at Grimsby's home form, draw, lost at home to Swindon, lost at home to Carlisle. 3 draws, 2 losses. How in God's name do you make them 7 to 10 shots? It's incredible. I think that is incredible. It's this game's been priced up purely on Crawley's away form. Crawley have lost 1-0 at Carlisle, 1-0 at Crewe, 4-1 at Doncaster. But they've drawn at Harrogate, Rochdale and Salford, and they do often find the net. That's the thing you can say with Crawley. I think they'll score tomorrow. 9-2 is a big price. There's 1.7 in it. I'm not saying they're going to win because there is a 74% chance they can lose. It frustrates me when I say this. I hate saying it because I get people emailing me saying, "Oh, you said they're a good price." Yeah, I'm saying they're a good price. I'm not saying they're going to win. If you back this all the time, you're going to get a 26% strike rate at 9-2, which is absolutely fantastic. I wish I could have a 26% strike rate at 9-2. 1 in 4 of my bets are going to win. They should be 14-5, Crawley. There's 1.7 in it. I wouldn't put you off. Grimsby are rated to win. Yes, I get that. But you don't go taking 7 to 10 about evens. You can afford to leave that alone. We all can. Hartlepool Carlisle. I was delighted Hartlepool finally got a win. It's been coming. They've only lost 1 of the last 6. That was away at Sutton, who are decent. And you know, I was analysing their form, and it's not that bad on the face of it. And I'll quickly go through it. They've lost away at Walsall, Northampton, Orient and Sutton. 2 of those teams are near the top. Walsall, I thought, were an outside playoff team, and Sutton are a top home team. At home, Hartlepool have drawn 4, 1-1, and their only defeat at home was to Bradford. The form isn't as bad. I'll be saying this because I'm a Hartlepool supporter. As you know, people, a lot of you know, a lot of you don't. But I don't ever get. You'll never see me having the rose tinted on because we've backed against them 4 or 5 times this season, and every time they've lost. Look, there's 0.2 in them tomorrow. I haven't highlighted that in blue. That was probably excitement when I was reading their form, and they're capable against them from this game. Don't get me wrong, but Carlisle are a tough nut to crack. They've lost once away all season. That was at Stevenage, who are a top side. Carlisle have only won 1 at Grimsby, and they've drawn the other 3. My gut feeling is it'll probably be a draw. But obviously I hope Hartlepool will win. But for betting purposes, it's a non-entity for us. Newport Rochdale 56-24-20. I think Newport should be odds on. I'm going to read out the case for this. It doesn't look good on the face of it. 1 win, 1 draw, 4 defeats. But the case for backing Newport The home defeats have been to Walsall, as I've just said, outside for the playoffs. Salford, one of the top sides. Grimsby, one of the best away sides in the division, and Barrow, one of the top sides in the division. That's rock solid form. Not rock solid form, but what I'm saying is that those defeats are acceptable. They drew with Carlisle and they beat Tranmere here. Rochdale, on my figures, are way worse than Tranmere. They're bottom of the league for a reason. They won at Colchester the other week, and that's pretty damning about Colchester in this game. Remember we touched on this game, 0.7 in Harrogate. Rochdale have lost 4, drawn at Carlisle, lost at Colchester. It's whether you think Newport can do it or not. Northampton, Salford, real tight one to call. I hope Northampton win because we're on them on the outrights. They got turned over at Walsall the other night, but their home form, they have won 5 from 6. The only defeat was at home to Doncaster. I was all geared up to back them. The price has gone in the last 24 hours. Maybe that's not a bad thing because Salford have won 3 on the road. They were good enough to win at Newport and Sutton. They lost at Doncaster, drew at Swindon, another team I like. But we'll come to that. Apologies about that phone. I should have turned it off before I'd done this video. Right, as I say, yeah, that game's a non-entity for us. Right, Stevenage, Swindon, 46-24-30. Stevenage, 6 wins at home, but I will make a case for Swindon. You might think the case is flimsy. It might be. I'm not saying it is, but I don't think that Stevenage warrant being 4-5, and I'll tell you for why. They've won 6 games at home. They've beaten teams ranging from 10th to 24th. Okay, they've not beaten a team in the top 9. Carlisle was their best win, and that was 2-1, a scrappy 2-1, because I think we backed them. Let's look at Swindon on the road. Swindon have won at Doncaster in 9th. Grimsby, they've drawn at Carlisle. Gillingham, Stockport, lost to Harrogate. Now, on the face of it, you look at it and you think, oh, crikey, yes, Stevenage won 6 from 6. They're going to make it 7 from 7. There's 1.4 points in Swindon. I backed these at 4-1 last night because I couldn't believe that I was getting 1.9 extra. To win at Doncaster and Grimsby aren't the best, but what I'm saying is Swindon have beaten a stronger team than what Stevenage have, and Swindon also drawn with Leyton Orient and Salford. I'm not saying Stevenage position is false, but they've played 2 teams in the top 5, both away from home. I know Bradford and Salford lost 3-0, 1-0, didn't score a goal. My figures pitch Stevenage 10th. That's where at the moment my outright figures put them 10th. And they've beaten teams, from 10th to the bottom of the table, but they've encountered 2 decent sides, lost them both. And as I've been saying for a long time, Swindon are fairly decent. They've won us some good money this season already. 7-2, 1.5 points in it almost. It's whether you want to take on a team that's won 6 from 6 at home. But whether Stevenage win, draw, lose, whatever, they should not be odds on for this game. I know they've won 6 from 6. Doesn't make them odds on because it all amounts to quality of opposition. Swindon are the best team they would have played so far. They're not an odds on shot, guys. Right, Sutton, Tranmere, final 2, and then we quickly crash through the National League. Sutton, Tranmere, 44-23, 33. I mean, Sutton were a team I liked at home. I still do. They've won 4 from 6. And they've beaten Barrow and Mansfield here, which is really decent form, I have to say. But Tranmere are above them in the league, and Tranmere have beaten Barrow and won at Salford. That sort of does put me off slightly. And I do think they're too short. There's a bit of value in Tranmere, but 0.4 at 33% doesn't fit with me for an away side, so I'm going to sit that one out. Walsall, Wimbledon, 50-24-26. I think Walsall should be evens. They've only won 2 at home. They lost to Tranmere and Grimsby, but they've held Stevenage, beaten Northampton from the top. And, Wimbledon, they've lost 3 on the road. They've lost at Stockport, Carlisle and Mansfield. I'd be surprised if Walsall weren't better than Carlisle come the end of the season. So there's 0.1 in Walsall. Again, it's how you see it. Right, that's it for England. Let's get on to the National League where we've got a maximum bet. Right, Bromley, Gateshead, 58-23-19. Bromley for me is a 3-point maximum bet. They're in really, really decent form, Bromley. They turned over Boreham Wood, which is really good form. They've won 5 from 6 at home. They have only conceded 1 goal at home all season. And when I say about beating levels of opposition, they've beaten Eastleigh and Oldham, Boreham Wood, drawn with Solihull. They're all better teams than Gateshead, and that's going back to that Stevenage Swindon game. Gateshead on the road, they've lost at Wrexham and Dorking, who are 2nd and 10th respectively. Bromley are 4th. Their win on the road was against 15th place Maidenhead. They've even lost 2-0 at 19th place Halifax. I can't see anything else other than a Boreham Wood win here. They should be 8-11. They're evens. It's a 3-point win maximum bet. Scunthorpe, Aldershot. I know this is going to sound crazy, seeing as Scunthorpe are in 23rd position, but they're in decent form. Since the manager left and there's a caretaker, they've been in good form. They've beaten 10th place Dorking, 21st place Yeovil, drawn with York, which is decent form. Aldershot, I know firsthand, are awful. They've lost 4 from 5 on the road. I think Scunthorpe will win. They should be a shade of odds on. They're not. Right, let's get on to the dreaded National League North. Hopefully it'll be good to us this week. And what I'm doing, guys, just to say, I tap that in here now. I'm halving my stake in this division. So, I play in England at half of what I play in Scotland and the National League, and I'm going to play half a stake of what I play in the National League and the National League South in the interim, purely and simply because I'm sick and tired of making money in this division and giving it back in here. If you want to do that, that's fine. If you don't, not a problem, but that's what I'm going to do. Boston Hereford 50-23-27. I think Boston should be evens. They're 6-5. At an appalling start, things have come together well. Well, I would say well, but they're going the right way for them. They're moving in the right direction in the table. Hereford have lost 3 from 5 on the road. Their best road performance was a 1-0 win at Chester. I think Boston could get a result here. Kings Lynn Chorley 58-23-19. Kings Lynn, they've won 3 from 4 at home. The other home game was a 1-1 draw against Leamington. Chorley are in 10th position. They've won 2. 11th place Alfreton, 18th place Boston. They lost at Scarborough and Telford. Kings Lynn 5-6. I think you might have to go to Bet365. I think they've got the best prices because I've had a right hassle getting on because I can't get on with Bet365. I've been through dozens of accounts in friends and family's name as well, but I've got access to one at the moment. So Kings Lynn is where you're going to have to go for that. Scarborough against Kettering 60-23-17. Scarborough should be odds on for this. They've won 2 from 4 at home. They've beaten Chorley and Hereford, drawn against Boston and Bradford PA. Kettering on the road, teams in the top half, they've lost every one of them. Scarborough sit 7th. Right, let's go on to the National League South. I'm going to Havant Concord tomorrow. Should be routine for Havant. They've won 4 from 4 at home. Concord have lost to Chelmsford and Oxford City. We're better than that. Concord have won at Hungerford. Who are third bottom, I think, will win tomorrow. Hope it's a better game than the Farnborough game, because that was a team that I thought we'd smash, and it was only 1-0. But I think Havant win tomorrow. No price, but as I say, I shall probably have 50-60 quid on just to pay for my entry fee. Dulwich Dartford 30-23-47. Dartford won 3 from 5 at home. 3 from 5 on the road. Defeats have been at Chippenham and Taunton, but only by the odd goal. Dulwich way down the bottom of the table. They've lost 3 from 4 at home. Their only win has been against Braintree and against Cheshunt, who are second bottom. Dartford ought to be winning this. Right, next game. Form's going out the window on this one. Up to a point. because of what's happened at Weymouth, as David Oldfield's been sacked, got a new manager in. Vibes good. I mean, he ruled with a rod of iron, from what I was told, and upset the players from day dot. I mean, I was told that, you know, they were really confident this season, but that confidence was being put about by the manager. The players didn't share his views. Now, we're on Weymouth on the outrights along with Ebbsfleet. It's funny, isn't it? We've got Ebbsfleet top and we got Weymouth bottom. They are our two teams on the outrights. But, do you know, I look at that Weymouth squad. Where do I see that Weymouth squad? You see Chelmsford in fourth. It's on par with that. I'm sorry, but it is. It's and it's like I say, when you've got a team, or you know, a football team who's got a better squad than their league position, you know whose fault it is, and it has been the managers. I've heard some really positive stuff, and I just wish Eastbourne wasn't quite as far. It's a bit too far for me, but I would love to go to that game tomorrow, because I think Weymouth will win. I hope they win as well. I mean, look, they've been appalling, but the road trips, they've only played 3 on the road. They lost at Chelmsford and Bath, who are 4th and 7th. They drew at Hungerford. Eastbourne and mid-table. Weymouth 5-2. I think it's too big a price. And as I say, that squad is still a top 6 squad at Weymouth, as far as I'm concerned. They're not going to go up this season, but they won't go down. I think they'll finish anywhere between, I don't know, sort of 10th to 15th, say, one of those sort of 5 positions, if you like. And they will pick up some points. And if we can start getting prices like this over the next few weeks, that will be fantastic. Right, Hampton Welling, because I know I'm going on a bit. Hampton won once at home. That was against Chippenham. Drawn 2, lost to Havant. Welling on the road have been decent. They've won 3, drawn 1. I think they're far too big a price. I think it's quite a close game. Because Welling can be a funny side. They drew away at Taunton, drew at home to Dover, who are sort of bottom half teams. But, again, we're being paid accordingly. I can't split these teams on figures, but we're getting 23-10, about 13-8 shot. We have to back it. St Albans against Chippenham, 56-24-20. I think St Albans should be odds on for this game. I really do. People will argue, oh well, they haven't won at home and stuff like that, but they're far, far better side than that. Chippenham have lost 3 from 4 away. Their only away point was at Worthing, who are so unpredictable at home. Well, unpredictable all the time. 5 wins, 5 draws. So I think St Albans should be odds on for this. And after a bad start, they have won 3 of their last 6. So we're getting paid at even money. It's up to you how you see it. So just quickly run through the National League. These are the bets I'm having. 3-point maximum on Bromley, a point on Scunthorpe, a point on all of these, but I'm halving my stake on that. I.e., if I was going to have £1 on Boston, it's now going to be 50p. If it was a 10 or a 5, and so on. National League staking remains the same, and I like the fact we got 3 away teams. I always prefer to play away, as you know, because naturally the price is bigger. That's it, guys. Sorry it's been a long one, and sorry for the waffle at the beginning about Paris Saint-Germain, who I've got absolutely no interest in. It just wanted to let you know that. It was a real sad story, but fingers crossed Havant can win, and fingers crossed Weymouth can get up and running for the season as well, and fingers crossed it's a good weekend. Good luck with whatever you're doing and whatever match you're going to. That's it. Bye for now.